The bed creaked when she shifted. Not from passion, from discomfort. I heard it. I hear everything these days. I was pretending to sleep, back turned, eyes locked on the blinking light of the smoke detector above me. She thought I was out cold. She didn't know I had been lying there for over an hour, staring into nothing, counting each inhale like it would fix something. Then came the whisper. So soft, it floated like a ghost between us. "Don't touch me tonight." She said it like a reflex, like someone might say, "I'm full," at a dinner they didn't enjoy. It wasn't rejection. Rejection would have had a hint of heat. This was indifference. I didn't move, didn't flinch. Just listened to the silence she left hanging in the room. And in that silence, I started packing. Not physically, mentally, emotionally. Quietly folding up everything I'd tolerated over the past 14 months. The lies, the long showers, the cold dinners, the sudden work trips, the stifled giggles at texts she never shared. She didn't see me standing outside the bathroom last week when she was on the phone, biting her lip and whispering, "Not now. He's home." She didn't know I opened the drawer in her nightstand yesterday and found the receipt, 2 glasses of red, 1 hotel suite, his name scrawled on the room service order. She didn't know I saw it all, but I stayed. I smiled. I asked about her day. I waited, not because I'm weak, but because I needed to hear her say it just once, that I wasn't wanted, that she'd rather turn toward the wall than turn toward me. And tonight, I got it. "Don't touch me tonight." She fell asleep within minutes, peaceful as ever. Meanwhile, I laid there, staring up at the ceiling I painted 3 years ago, thinking about the way she used to trace my arm when we watched movies, or laugh until she snorted at dumb commercials. I miss that woman. She's been gone for a while. At 6:12 a.m., I slipped out of bed. Quiet. No drama. No storm. I stood over her, watched her sleep like I had nothing left to lose, because honestly, I didn't. I leaned down close, right by her ear. "Goodbye," I whispered. She didn't stir. By the time she woke up, I was gone. But the real story? The one that'll ruin everything she built with that man? She woke up smiling. I know, because I saw it, through the Ring camera. Not the front door one. The bedroom one. The one she didn't know I installed 2 weeks ago, nestled perfectly into the faux air vent I screwed in myself when she was out on one of her late-night walks. I watched from my hotel room as she stretched lazily, rubbed her eyes, and smiled to herself in that smug little way she does when she thinks everything is going according to plan. She rolled over, reached for her phone, and seconds later, her face lit up. A reply must have come in. From him. Probably something like, "Good morning, beautiful." I wonder if he knows she drools in her sleep and clips her toenails in the living room. I should have felt heartbroken, maybe furious, but instead, I felt weirdly calm, like I'd been holding my breath underwater for too long, and now I was finally breaking the surface. I sat in that hotel room, cheap curtains, buzzing mini fridge, a brown stain on the carpet I didn't ask about, and I opened my laptop. Because I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. See, I didn't just leave. I didn't storm out and cry in the parking lot like some wounded husband trope. I left behind something. Multiple somethings, actually. A trail, carefully planted. Hints and traps. A web of breadcrumbs she was never supposed to see until it was too late. And more importantly, I took things with me too. The spare key to her studio, the one she claimed she needed for freelance work. The studio she insisted was strictly professional. Funny how professional it looked when I walked in last week and found 2 wine glasses, a torn shirt, and a red scarf hanging from a chair. I took photos. I even took a little souvenir, the cufflink. Just one. Her lover's initials etched right into it. Fancy guy. Too bad he left it behind like an idiot. I also emptied half of the joint account. Legally. Quietly. And I transferred it to a savings account she forgot we had, the one we opened for vacation plans 5 years ago and never used. She hadn't thought about that account in years. But I had. Back in the hotel, I finished uploading the bedroom footage to a private drive. It wasn't graphic, but it was damning, the way she kept giggling at her texts and whispering, "Can't wait to see you again," sprawled out across the bed I paid for. And then came the knock. I thought it might be hotel staff, but when I opened the door, it was Silas. My best friend. Or rather, former best friend. Tall, grinning, with that same cocky walk he's had since high school. He looked surprised to see me standing there like I hadn't evaporated. "I figured you'd still be in pieces," he said, stepping in without asking. He was always like that, walking into rooms like they owed him something. "What do you want?" I asked. He glanced around the room, then said it with no shame. She told me you left. I just came to make sure you're not going to do anything crazy. Crazy. That was rich. Coming from the man who's been sneaking into my house while I was working double shifts to cover bills. I handed him a flash drive. This is everything. Every message. Every camera angle. Every timestamp. He looked confused. Why are you giving this to me? Because I want you to see exactly what she said about you when you weren't around. And with that, I closed the door in his face. Let them turn on each other. Let the fire start from inside. Next stop? Her mother's house. Her mother always smelled like cinnamon and bad judgment. I stood on her porch holding a plain manila envelope, heart pounding but hands steady. She opened the door like she always did, half a smile, half suspicion, wrapped in a beige cardigan that hadn't changed since the Obama administration. She looked me up and down. "Lowell," she asked, "you look thin." I could have laughed. The last time she said that was when I had the flu and was coughing up blood. But I didn't come here to reminisce about our warm family memories. I came for the last honest piece of leverage I had left. "Can I come in?" I asked quietly. She didn't like me much. Never really did. I wasn't polished enough. I didn't come from the right family. I worked with my hands instead of sitting in an office. Ingrid once told me her mom cried the night she found out her daughter was marrying that man with a wrench and a rusty truck. But today, she stepped aside and let me in. Maybe she sensed something. Maybe she smelled the smoke I brought with me. I sat down in her over-decorated living room, where ceramic angels fought for space with dusty family portraits. She folded her arms and said, "So, Ingrid says you've gone off the rails." I almost smiled. Of course she'd be the one to spin it first. I slid the envelope across the coffee table. "Before you judge me, I want you to read that. Then you can decide who's off the rails." She opened it slowly, the way you'd open a letter bomb. Inside were printed screenshots, hundreds of messages between Ingrid and Silas. Some flirty, some disgusting, some downright cruel. Then came the time-stamped photo of them together outside the motel on Route 12. Then the credit card receipts. Then the audio recording I captured from that late-night phone call 2 weeks ago. The one where Ingrid said, "He's a pathetic little man, but I'll drag this out a few more months and get half of everything." That one hit hardest. Her mother's lips parted, then clamped shut. She blinked slowly, set the papers down, and looked at me like she didn't recognize who I was. Or maybe she no longer recognized her daughter. "I don't know what to say," she muttered. "Then don't," I said. "Just listen." I explained the truth. That I had known about the affair for nearly 2 months. That I had kept quiet to collect proof. That I had already spoken to a lawyer, and that Ingrid's plan to take everything would be nothing more than a laughable attempt in front of the judge. But what really cracked her mother's expression into something vulnerable was the part she hadn't seen yet, the ultrasound. That's right. Ingrid's pregnant. I found the test hidden behind the cleaning supplies in the laundry room 3 days ago. Took a photo. When I asked her casually about kids the next night, she said, "You know I'm not ready for that." Turns out, she's plenty ready. Just not with me. Her mother leaned back, silent. She looked older than I remembered. "Do you want me to talk to her?" "No. I want you to stay out of it," I said firmly. But I needed someone else to know. Someone close to her. I'm not just walking away. I'm erasing myself from the story. And I meant it. As I left, she didn't follow me to the door. She just sat there, holding the ultrasound photo I had slipped in last. No words. Just silence. Ingrid still hadn't texted me. No call. No, "Where are you?" Nothing. Which meant she was still under the illusion she was in control. Good. Let her believe that. Because tomorrow was the charity banquet. The one hosted by her company. The one where all the important people would be. The one where I was expected to stand by her side in a nice suit and pretend I didn't know she was destroying me behind closed doors. Oh, I'd be there. Just not in the way she expected. The banquet was held in one of those pretentious glass buildings downtown. The kind with valet parking, white orchids on every table, and a jazz trio playing covers of songs no one really knows. It was a fundraiser hosted by Ingrid's firm, meant to impress donors and flaunt their social image. She always loved these nights. The spotlight, the flattering dresses, the excuse to pretend our marriage was spotless for 2 hours. But this time, the cracks weren't just beneath the surface. They were about to run right through the center of the evening. I walked in wearing the same charcoal gray suit she bought me last year. Fitted, clean, like I belonged. No one noticed me at first. They never really did. That's one of the perks of being the husband of a woman like Ingrid. You're expected to smile, nod, and vanish. And I was happy to play that role one last time. She didn't see me enter. I stayed back, near the catering area, watching her mingle and work the room like she owned it. Her hair was curled, her dress was emerald, and her laugh, fake and theatrical, bounced across the chandeliers. She placed her hand on Silas's shoulder once. I caught it. So did the photographer. I made sure of that. And then, right before dinner, the director of the event got on stage to thank everyone. He announced donors, introduced board members, and ended with, "And now, a word from someone very special to one of our brightest stars, Ingrid Mallory. Her husband has prepared a short message." Lowell. Every head turned. Ingrid froze. She hadn't expected me to show. She told people I was traveling for work. Even Silas looked stunned, though not for long. He started shifting in his seat, clearly uncomfortable. I could have read them both from space. I stepped up, adjusted the mic, and calmly looked out across the sea of polished people. My palms didn't sweat. My voice didn't shake. For the first time in years, I felt completely in control. "Hi, I'm Lowell," I began. "You probably don't know me because I'm usually somewhere off to the side, taking the coats, avoiding the cameras, nodding politely while Ingrid dazzles the room. And that's fine. I'm not a spotlight kind of guy." A few polite chuckles. "But I do know a thing or two about what it means to be devoted. What it means to sacrifice for someone else's comfort. And I used to think marriage meant doing those things without needing applause. Without needing credit." Ingrid's smile was a ghost now. A still mask. She knew something was coming, but not how much. "I'm not here to talk about her achievements tonight," I continued, voice smooth, steady. "I'm here to say goodbye. Because this," I gestured around the room, "this isn't real. Not to me. Not anymore." Gasps. Murmurs. I've spent the last 2 months watching my wife give her time, her attention, and more to someone else. A man I trusted. A man who is actually here with us tonight. "Silas, stand up, won't you?" Silas didn't move. No one did. His face went gray. I won't go into detail. That's not what this is for. But I will say this. If any of you think image matters more than integrity, you're going to love how this all turns out. There are people here who'll find out tonight that their donations helped fund a very private hotel suite and a very public betrayal. Check your emails. I've already sent you the receipts. Dead silence. And then I walked off. I didn't wait for a response. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Because before I even hit the elevator, I could hear the noise begin. Whispers, phones buzzing, someone shouting Ingrid's name from across the ballroom. When I stepped out into the cold air, I breathed for the first time in weeks. Not shallow. Not bitter. Just full. That night, I went back to the hotel and turned my phone off. Ingrid called 23 times. Left voicemails. Texts. Even had one of her coworkers reach out. I ignored them all. Let her scramble. Let her explain everything, not to me, but to the people who mattered to her reputation. She was always more loyal to appearances than to me, anyway. But there was still one thing left she didn't know, something that would make this whole evening seem like just the opening act. And I was saving that for tomorrow. By the time the sun rose the next morning, Ingrid's world was already on fire. My phone, which I finally powered back on around 7:45 a.m., lit up with a barrage of missed calls, texts, and one particularly hilarious voicemail from Silas that started with, "You're a piece of," and ended with him begging me not to send the footage to his wife. Yes, his wife. Because Silas, the charming, confident, suit-wearing homewrecker, forgot to mention he was still very much married. That little detail would have slipped past me if I hadn't looked him up. If I hadn't driven to that quiet little neighborhood in Harper's Ridge and watched him walk out of a house with 2 toddlers playing on the front lawn. I had names, faces, addresses. I wasn't planning revenge when I started gathering this stuff. I honestly just wanted the truth. But once I had it, and they kept lying, well, I stopped seeing them as people. I saw them as problems to solve. Anyway, the internet did what it does best. The banquet ended with scandal. People posted photos. Whispers spread like wildfire through social media, forums, corporate Slack channels. Someone from Ingrid's office leaked the donor email I sent, the one with screenshots of the hotel bills, the restaurant receipts, even a selfie Silas had sent her in a bathrobe with the caption, "Still smells like you." I didn't even have to touch it after that. The embarrassment carried itself. But the real blow hadn't landed yet. That morning, while Ingrid sat at home with mascara-stained cheeks and a press team scrambling to do damage control, I met with someone she'd probably forgotten existed, her ex-husband, Marcus. I'd reached out to him 2 weeks earlier after finding an old envelope in our attic marked, "Do not open, final papers." Curiosity got the better of me. Turns out, Ingrid had been married before, very briefly, and never told me. What was wild wasn't that she'd been married, it was why it ended. Infidelity, emotional manipulation, financial deception. Sound familiar? Marcus and I met at a diner just off the highway, the kind with sticky booths and terrible coffee. He looked exhausted, like a guy who tried too hard to fix something already broken. I saw too much of myself in him, and that pissed me off more than I expected. "I don't know why you reached out," he said after I laid everything out. "Because I thought I was crazy," I said. "I thought I was losing my mind. And then I found her lies in a drawer, and you were sitting right there at the bottom of it." He nodded. Then, after a long pause, he handed me a folder. No questions. Just a folder. Inside were legal documents, old court statements, and a notebook filled with handwritten notes. His notes. About her patterns. The gaslighting. The same sentences she'd said to him, word for word, that I had written in my own journal months earlier. I didn't need it for court. I didn't need it to win anything. I just needed to see that I wasn't the only one who had been broken by her. That I wasn't weak. That this wasn't my fault. We shook hands, and I left. I got home later that evening. Not our house, of course. I hadn't stepped foot in that place since I left the ring on the sill. I went back to my parents' old cabin, a quiet, wooded place I hadn't visited in years. I spent the night there alone. No cell signal. No internet. Just trees and wind and the sound of my own thoughts. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't sad anymore. Not for what I lost, but for what she'd thrown away. But Ingrid wasn't done trying. Around midnight, headlights rolled up the gravel path. I heard the engine shut off. Then a car door. Then her voice, faint but desperate. "Lowell, please, just let me talk to you." I didn't move. She knocked. She called my name. She even cried. The woman who once whispered, "Don't touch me," now stood outside in the cold begging for a sliver of connection. I didn't answer the door, but I recorded every second of it. She stood outside the cabin for nearly 40 minutes. At first, it was yelling, then pleading, then silence. Just her shadow on the frosted glass and the faint crunch of gravel under her heels as she shifted from foot to foot in the cold. I watched it all from the other side of the curtain. I recorded it too, audio and video. Not for revenge, not to make a spectacle, but because I knew something she didn't. That everything she said out there, she wasn't saying to me. She was saying it for him. Ingrid had this talent. She could tailor her tears to fit any stage. This wasn't grief. This wasn't love. It was panic wrapped in a performance, because she was no longer in control of the narrative. Her world wasn't just cracking, it was hemorrhaging. When I finally reviewed the recording later that night, there was a moment, around the 32-minute mark, where her voice broke and she said, "Lowell, please, I need you. You were always the one who made me feel safe. It was just a stupid mistake." Silas meant nothing. That's what I'd been waiting for. Because 2 days earlier, I'd received an anonymous email with an attachment titled, "Just in case you still think she loves you." Inside was a video. Grainy, poorly lit, but unmistakable. Ingrid, in Silas's car. The dashboard matched his. The timestamp confirmed it. She was laughing. Drunk, maybe. Or worse. And she said, and I quote, "He's so easy to play. You have no idea. Lowell cries if I look disappointed. I could cheat in the living room, and he'd apologize for not being more exciting." She laughed for a full 10 seconds after that. He laughed too. I hadn't slept since watching it. So after she left the cabin, I waited until morning. I connected to the nearest signal tower from the edge of the woods, sat in my truck, and uploaded the video she never thought would see the light of day, her crying at my doorstep, whispering apologies, pretending Silas meant nothing. Spliced side by side with her in his car, bragging about how little I meant. I didn't send it to the public. I sent it to 23 people. Her colleagues, her boss, her sister, Silas's wife, her personal trainer, who she once called her accountability angel. And yes, her church group, the one she led bi-weekly, reading verses about humility and trust. I wrote no caption. Just, "One night. 2 faces." I shut my laptop and drove into town. Spent the day in silence. Had breakfast at a diner where no one knew my name. Took a walk down by the marina where Ingrid once told me she wanted to retire someday. I sat on a bench and let the winter wind slap me in the face. And for the first time in my adult life, I didn't feel like apologizing for anything. That evening, my phone exploded. Not with angry calls, with silence. Notifications from every email I'd sent. Read. Opened. Forwarded. Screenshots started circulating. Her boss was the first to respond. A single message. Consider your message received. I wish you peace. Then came Silas's wife. She didn't write back. She didn't have to. 20 minutes after I saw her open the message, her social media changed. Every photo with him deleted. Her relationship status, single. But the one that shook me was Ingrid's sister. She was the only one in her family who ever liked me. She sent a voice message. I listened to it once in full, then deleted it. But I'll never forget what she said. Lowell, I always knew she was reckless, but I didn't know she was cruel. I'm sorry. For all of it. For how we treated you. For what she's done. You didn't deserve this. I didn't cry. Not out of pride. I just didn't have tears left. They dried up somewhere between her whispering "don't touch me" and me whispering goodbye. The fallout didn't stop there. Ingrid called over 40 times that night. I blocked her. She showed up to my brother's place. He told her if she didn't leave, he'd call the cops. She wrote me an email titled, "You win." I never opened it. Because I hadn't won anything. This wasn't victory. This was me crawling out of the wreckage of something I built with trembling hands and watching her set fire to it with a smile. But there's one last thing she doesn't know. Something she assumed I was too passive to do. Ingrid always underestimated paper. In a world full of tweets and texts, she figured everything important came from a screen. But not everything digital has weight. Not like a letter. Not like a sealed envelope in someone's hand. No link to click away from. No swipe to ignore. Just ink on paper. Tangible. Permanent. That's why I mailed them. 3 dozen letters. Each handwritten. Each one personal. One for every person who had a front row seat to our life. One for everyone who ever told me how lucky I was to have her, how radiant she looked in a dress, how perfect we seemed together. I didn't send the same thing twice. These weren't rants. They weren't petty. They were calm, factual, deliberate, just like everything I'd done since I walked away. In each letter, I wrote one honest story. The time she told me she was working late but was actually out of town with Silas. The morning I found a note in her bag from a coworker thanking her for another unforgettable night. The night she came home flushed and breathless, blaming it on a workout, while I watched her remove a necklace I never gave her. I wrote about the small humiliations too, like how she'd correct me in front of friends, how she rolled her eyes when I spoke about anything she didn't care about, how I once told her I was worried I might be depressed, and she said, "Maybe don't be so dramatic." I included copies of what I could, bank statements, photo evidence, screenshots. But more than that, I included how it felt. Not just what happened, but the slow erosion of dignity, the way I'd been twisted into something quieter, smaller, more invisible. And I signed each one with the same line. This is not revenge. This is reclamation. I sent one to her boss, one to the head of the nonprofit she volunteered at, one to her college mentor, one to the neighbor whose teenage son had once overheard us fighting and looked at me like I was the problem. And yes, one to the couple who hosted our engagement party and told me, with misty eyes, that we were going to make it. I didn't do it to punish her. I did it to remove the mask she worked so hard to wear. Because what's worse than being left? Being unseen. And I had been unseen for years, while she flourished, while she smiled, while she lied through her white teeth and got applauded for it. The aftermath was immediate. 2 days later, Ingrid's PR firm dropped her as a client. One-sentence email, "This partnership no longer aligns with our values." Her board seat at the arts nonprofit, gone. Her invitation to the women's executive retreat, revoked. Silas? According to a very long voicemail from one of his friends, he'd moved out of the house he shared with his wife and was now figuring things out from a hotel room in Cleveland. I almost felt bad. Almost. But what truly sealed everything wasn't something I did. It was something Ingrid did on accident. She posted on social media. A photo. Her at a cafe, captioned, "Taking space." Taking time. You could see her eyes were swollen. But in the reflection of the cafe window, clear as day, was Silas, sitting 2 tables behind her. The comments section turned into a war zone. People zoomed in. People dissected. People remembered everything I'd shared. She deleted the post within hours. Then her whole account. But the damage was done. I didn't even have to touch it. I was already gone. I had left the cabin behind, rented a tiny place near the coast, and started working at a boat repair shop owned by a friend of my father's. I woke up at sunrise, drank black coffee, fixed what was broken, things that wanted to be fixed, And for once, no one called me dramatic. Then one morning, I got a letter. It was from Ingrid. The envelope was thick, heavy. Inside was a letter and a photo. The letter was 6 pages long. The photo, it was of us. From years ago. Back when I used to wear hope like a second skin. The last line of her letter read, "You'll never believe me again, but I want you to know, I didn't stop loving you. I just stopped deserving you." I didn't cry. I didn't write back. I lit the letter, watched the flame take it, and finally felt free. But there's one final part of this story. Something I haven't shared yet. And it's not about Ingrid. It's about the one person I thought I'd lost in all of this, and the message I got that changed everything. 3 weeks passed since I read that final letter from Ingrid. I never told anyone what was in it, not because I was hiding something, but because it didn't matter. Not anymore. I had already let go of the version of her that once lived in my mind, and that version had died long before she whispered, "Don't touch me tonight." The house we once shared was on the market. She tried to stall the sale at first, said she needed emotional closure. But with everything unraveling around her, she eventually caved. I signed the papers from my new place on the coast, a quiet little rental above a hardware store, with salty air, creaky floors, and exactly 0 ghosts. I kept busy with honest work. Boat repairs, engine maintenance, things that screamed, "Fix me," but didn't scream back. The guys at the marina didn't care about my past. No one knew my name, and no one asked why I talked to myself under my breath when a bolt stripped. I liked it that way. But then, one afternoon, something happened. I was knee-deep in bilge water, trying to unscrew a rusted clamp, when I heard someone call out, "Hey, Lowell." I turned around, wiping my hands on my shirt. It was Ray. Ray used to bartend at the pub Ingrid and I went to before everything went dark. We weren't close, just the kind of familiar that comes from someone remembering your order and not judging you for nursing 3 pale eyelash in silence. I hadn't seen her since everything blew up. She smiled, holding a paper bag. "You still allergic to shellfish?" I blinked. "Yeah." "Why?" "Good. Because I brought chicken tacos." She sat down on the dock without asking. We ate there, feet dangling over the water, not talking about Ingrid or betrayal or pain. We talked about her new job managing a surf shop, the neighbor who kept stealing her parking spot, and the dog she was trying to train not to bark at ceiling fans. For the first time in a long time, I laughed, not the brittle, fake laugh I used to survive small talk, but the kind that comes from your chest and reminds you you're still alive. After we finished eating, she looked at me and said, "I don't know everything you went through, but you look lighter, like you finally exhaled." I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. I think I did. That night, I walked back to my place, turned off the lights, and sat by the window. The ocean breeze rolled in through the cracked pane. I could still feel it, that ache in the ribs from where the lies used to live. But it wasn't sharp anymore, just a dull memory. And then my phone buzzed. It was a message from Ray. "Next time, you pick the tacos." Simple. Not a declaration. Not a promise. Just a beginning. I smiled, shut the phone, and went to bed without replaying old arguments or wondering what I could have done differently. I didn't need to. That chapter was over. She whispered, "Don't touch me tonight." I whispered, "Goodbye." And somewhere in between those words, I found myself again. Not broken. Not bitter. Just free.